Hey folks, Kevin here. Well, it's February 14th, 2020, and this is an Ask Me Anything video, and it's in response to a question I got regarding a video I posted just a few days ago about the coronavirus. And I posted that video because I was concerned that there wasn't the local media and our government agencies aren't taking the forward step of just trying to give public service announcements on regular broadcast stations and on various forms of media, including social media, that gives calm, factual information about how we should prepare, not wait until the last minute and say, okay, now we're going to have a quarantine where people go rushing to the stores and buy out all of the supplies that are there. My goal is to get people to take responsibility for their own safety and well-being, and that's one of the reasons I posted that video. And the question or suggestion I had from one of the viewers was, could you share with us what I'm doing to help safeguard myself and my family? So, and I think that's a really fair question, and my answer can't be done in one video, unfortunately. I'm very verbose. And it's all of our responses should be based on the context of our individual circumstances. So we're all different. We all live in different locations and all. And I don't think we should focus on one potential catastrophic event such as a pandemic coronavirus infection. I think the flu is something that we need to be concerned about. That comes through every year and it takes lives every year. I think that we need to be concerned about in the area where I live in is ice storms, snowstorms, power outages, floods. Some people have to worry about forest fires or living in a high crime zone. Living in an area where there's the chance of getting East or West Nile virus or Eastern equine encephalitis. There are many different potential health hazards or catastrophic events that can happen. And certainly someone can lose a job. Your home could catch on fire and you'd be displaced from your home. You could break down in the middle of the winter and be stranded someplace if you're trying to travel in an area. So what I always suggest is starting off with a goals list. And what I mean by a goals list is, well, what are the things that you're most concerned about that you want to be prepared for? So listing all those things that are environmental things, and it may be, a member of the family has contracted a chronic debilitating disease. What are your goals for making sure that everything's met? Or a family member is going to die. How am I going to deal with this circumstance that's coming up? It isn't just preparing for a coronavirus sweeping the area and all. Hopefully we won't have to deal with that. But I'm always trying to create a list of the things that I'm most concerned about, and that gets modified over time. And then I create, basically I SOAP the situation. And by SOAP I mean subjective, objective assessment and plan. So the first part is all of the things that I'm thinking about. Let's say snowstorms or ice storms. That's the subjective part. All of the things that I'm concerned about, and then doing basically an objective step next is what's the frequency, what's the index of suspicion that something like this is going to actually happen, and quantifying it based on data that's available, and then doing an assessment, and based on all of the subjective and objective measurable things that you can find out about those things that you're concerned about, and then doing an assessment, going through and saying, well, what's the assessment? And your assessment develops into a plan, and your plan may be many years in the making, but you may prioritize what things you can do right away, what things are going to require more money, what things are going to require new skills that you have to develop, and so on and so forth. And I hate to belabor that part, but that part is kind of important for whatever it is that you're trying to get yourself in a comfort zone where you're not going to be so stressed out about what you're going to do if this bad thing happens or not. And everyone's different. With social media and YouTube videos, you can see people preparing in all different ways, and some of those videos are, especially with infectious diseases, I've seen a couple of videos where people didn't even put the protective gear on correctly, and they've contaminated the environment. And there's steps to everything, to doing things correctly. You know, it's like building a home or building a building or cooking something. There's steps and certain amounts of ingredients and different ingredients that are necessary for whatever the recipe is or the building is, and so on and so forth. And steps you have to go through, like when you're donning, let's say a suit that's going to protect you or protect people in the environment as well. So I thought today what I'd start off with something rather basic. As soon as I thought about this, I started jotting some things down in my Evernote. So I got to put my glasses on so I can read that. But I would say places like the Red Cross, whoever your county or state health department, those places can be very helpful. The World Health Organization, the CDC. For infectious diseases, some of these sources are really good. As far as medical conditions and other aspects about like how I keep up to date on what's going on with the coronavirus, which flu virus it is and all, I go through Google Scholar. So you can go to your Google search engine, put in Google Scholar, they'll bring up a search engine that will look for peer-reviewed scientific literature from all the various journals, and whether it's nutrition stuff I'm going through or whether I'm looking for what's the latest on the COVID-19, the Chinese coronavirus that's going on right now. So those are some of the resources to go to. I jotted down a few things here about the flu because I thought I'd start out with something that is relevant, because the information that I'm going to cover here with just going over these flu aspects really have to do with infectious diseases. So you're at greater risk if you're 50 years or older, you're pregnant, you're living with a chronic medical condition, a child 6 months or older, living with or caring for anyone who is at high risk, who has immunocompromised disease process. You have poor lifestyle, whether it's exercise, sleep, your diet, those things, smoking, drugs, stress. Common flu symptoms would include a high fever, severe body aches, headache, extreme tiredness, sore throat, cough, runny nose, stuffy nose, vomiting and diarrhea, which is much more common in children. Potential risks of serious complications of the flu include bronchial pneumonia. With the coronavirus, we think of a viral pneumonia with a secondary bacterial pneumonia as well. Caregiving, how to treat the flu. So designate a person as a caregiver. You don't want everyone taking care of someone, increasing the exposure risk. You want to decrease exposure risk if at all possible by designating a single caregiver. Keep everyone's personal items separate. All household members should avoid sharing pens, papers, clothes, towels, sheets, blankets, food, eating utensils, unless they have been cleaned between uses. Disinfect doorknobs, light switches, handles, computers, telephones, keyboards, toys, and other surfaces that are commonly touched at home or in the workplace. Wash everyone's dishes in a dishwasher or by hand using very hot soapy water. Wash everyone's clothes in a standard washing machine as you normally would, but use detergent with very hot water. Wash your hands after handling dirty laundry as well. Wear disposable gloves when in contact with or cleaning up any bodily fluids, and that includes sneezing and any of the secretions that come from a body. Practical things you can do to prevent viral infections. Stay home, avoid planes, trains, buses, crowded areas. At home, avoid visitors, no visitors, avoid contact with symptomatic people or potential carriers. Don't share food, utensils, cups, anything at work. No handshaking, kisses, hugs. That's a hard one for my wife because as a clinician, she's always hugging her clients. Where was I in my list? Avoid handling materials that other people have touched, including money. Wear gloves when touching contaminated surfaces and pets. Wear gloves, don't touch your mucous membranes, and wash your hands very thoroughly. Coughs and sneezes spread diseases. Catch a cough and sneeze and your sneeze particles, like in a paper towel or a large napkin. Once you catch it into that, close it up and dispose of it, or put it into the wash, directly right into the washing machine so it doesn't get handled again, or put it inside of a sheet or a pillowcase, whatever it takes to make sure that you're decreasing exposure to the surface area where those warm, moist mucus, viral contaminated secretions are in contact with. You want to decrease anyone's contact to those. I don't think sneezing into the inner surface of the elbow is a brilliant idea. Certainly if you want to just use anything like wood ash or whatever, put that there and do the sneeze in it, and you watch it pop up and down. It goes down your clothes and goes up into your hair or on your hat. So I don't know that that's the wisest thing. I think we need to be prepared when we know it's flu season and all. I like bigger things like a paper towel, but it has to be held like a cup-like section, or using a few tissues at a time, and not sticking them up under your sleeve or that sort of thing, or in your bra. Possible fecal contamination with various viruses, including the flu. So good hygiene with bathroom habits and all. And certainly if you're using a public restroom, using a paper towel or toilet tissue or whatever it is, trying not to touch different things, using your elbows for turning on and off water if that's at all possible, washing your hands very, very thoroughly, not touching the flushing arm on a toilet. If you're going to flush the toilet and there's a potential risk of fecal contamination, the fecal particles could actually get aerosolized, so putting down the cover of the toilet before the flush is important in those circumstances as well. If you're wearing a mask, and you're trying to prevent yourself from becoming infected, then you want to use one of the N95 masks that you can pick up places. I wouldn't try buying them right now. The prices are outrageous right now. Those are something to buy after the risk is over, and stock up on those. If you're using the standard surgical masks or the dust masks that are being used, the thing is that you don't want to touch the mask afterwards, because the high humidity from your exhalations are going to spread and create a very moist environment. Now, typically the flu virus particles, as I recall, I don't remember this data specifically, you can look it up, but I think at temperatures that are like 40-45 degrees Fahrenheit, so which is like in this time of year, your garage or your mudroom might be down that low. The virus can live for like 24 hours. But in a really warm environment like 80 degrees, it might only be viable for about an hour. But I would always just double every number that you ever hear for the viability and the temperature exposure. Certainly this coronavirus, it can once the particles hit a surface or a fomite, something that you're carrying around and that you would touch, that may be viable for 9 days after exposure. And that's when you look on the news now and you'll see on one of the what do you call them, I'll say Love Boat. They're a I can't think of it. It's like a big ship that takes people on cruise ship. So you'll see in some of the videos of some of the people that are on it, you'll see them, they'll have their face mask on, but they'll be coming out, and in some of the videos you can see the people touching their faces and then touching the handrails as well. So that's a good way of keep spreading that virus on the cruise ship. Now I'm talking about the coronavirus that you can see in some of the YouTube videos, and I don't know if they're showing it on regular TV. I don't get regular TV. Certainly, if you can avoid going to really populated places, especially places like hospitals or doctor's offices. So being prepared way in advance to recognize what the symptoms are. And I'm not telling anyone, suggesting that they don't go to the doctor. I just want everybody to be aware that it's a cauldron. Lots of sick people are there, and during times of where people consider it an emergency situation, and there's people who are sick there, so we got all sorts of, they are going to deal with the people who are most critical first, and therefore some of the people who are potentially contaminating the environment have gone around and contaminated, and there aren't necessarily the staff to be able to be there and clean things up. Certainly in doctors' offices, you see magazines, at least in this part of the world, there's magazines there. That's like a no-touch. The remote control for the TV there, that's a no-touch as well. So just think through things. Think of everything as being a potential fomite. It's something that someone either touched with soil from going to the bathroom on their hands, these are microscopic particles in warm, moist places. These bacteria can live for quite some while. Viruses can as well. And without sounding more gross, those are the things I think about. If you're a meat eater, certainly cook your meat and your eggs very, very thoroughly. That's something you want to be careful of. I mentioned in the last video that this is one of the ways that we can actually have a mutation. You can have one virus that's only within animals that's spread amongst the animals that doesn't affect people, and the person also have a virus like one of our coronaviruses, one of our rhinoviruses. We could have any virus that potentially could get mutated by the presence of taking in another virus from another animal and then creating a zoonotic disease. That's a potential. All of the science hasn't been worked out. We go back and we trace these back and try to say, that we believe this came from a bird, went to a pig, and then the person picked it up. So that's one of the reasons why we're whole food plant-based, and one of the reasons why we always compost all of the fecal material from all of the different animal species that we collect manures from very, very thoroughly here. And that means thermophilic composting that, getting the temperature of the compost up. And I'm sorry, I'm going off track here a bit. If you start feeling ill, having a sore throat and all, wearing a facial mask, if nothing else, it'll help you to stop touching some of your mucous membranes, your nose and your mouth. Certainly, if you're living with someone or you're going into these environments, you want to wear glasses that have the wraparound, not like these flat reading glasses. You want glasses that wrap right around, or goggles that wrap around. It helps to keep you from touching the mucous membranes of your eyes, or from droplets from someone's sneeze or cough to hit the area. Unfortunately, aerosolized, which we believe the coronavirus potentially is at this point, could be taken in through cracks and crevices around the sign, and then you can touch your hair and then touch your mouth as well. As far as social activities, I mentioned, you certainly want to decrease your exposure to people in churches and social dances, social environments, community groups. you want to minimize that as much as possible. And those things that are necessary, you want to wear the appropriate protective gear and bring the disinfectants, because people may not be doing the disinfecting. What else? Something I think that's really important just for minimal storage. You've seen in our videos, we have all these different stores and all of root cellar foods and canned goods, dehydrated goods, all these different things that we do, and that's just not practical. We grow our own microgreens and all, and that's not practical for someone to start off with, just come in and start off doing all the things that we're doing. It's taken us years to get to this point. But I think having, each person minimally should have 1 gallon of water per person per day. And you need to think, geez, well, how long could I be in quarantine or be in isolation potentially even? So if you're being restricted to your home, which is probably the most comfortable place you could be, that like if you heat your home by wood, you want to have plenty of wood you want to have the things that start the fire. You want to have enough water to meet all your needs. So I talked about 1 gallon per person per day of water to consume. Well, maybe you need more water if you have dehydrated foods that you want to rehydrate, or cook beans or rice, those sorts of things. So you need to really think through everything. So that's why I suggested in the very beginning, starting off with your subjective and objective components, because with each problems that you say, okay, I want to address this, I want to be able to be in my home for a full 4 weeks. Anything beyond that, we're going to have to really ration things out over those 4 weeks so that we get things done. That means medications and all. Like, I drink more than 1 gallon of water per day. I have dry mouth. So during the night, I have water glasses, quart jars that are filled right next to me so I can keep swallowing water. I need artificial tears, so I need to make sure I've always got artificial tears. Whatever medications people need, you need to work these things out with your doctor and say, you know what, last year there was a pandemic, there was the flu season. I don't want to be going to the pharmacist, picking up the meds. What sort of periods of time can you get your medication set so that you can be prepared to not have to leave the home, have the medications you need as well? If you have if you're in a flu situation, or certainly in a viral pandemic situation, you want to have thermometers at home as well. You have to think about, if you have pets or livestock animal, how am I going to meet all of their needs during the time that we're confined or restricted from doing things? All of those things need to be considered as well. Prevention is always the best the best medicine. So eating good, healthy food, exercising regularly, washing your hands, good hygiene as well. All the different foods that you want to have stored, how you want to have them stored. I can make videos about those things in the future. I would say with this day, with social media and all, or at least with text messaging, you can actually limit your need to be with other people by doing some of these things, and just out of respect, even though both of you may feel good, it might be best to reduce your potential exposure, because that person may not have thought about, oh, you know what, last week we were here and those people got sick there, and geez, I could have picked up the infection and not be showing any signs of it yet. So those are things to think about. Having certainly things like acetaminophen or ibuprofen or even aspirin to help fight off a fever. Certainly not aspirin for children, certainly no acetaminophen or Tylenol for someone who drinks. You don't want to mix those two. Those are really important. Making sure that you've got hydration fluids available for you at all times, and there's simple formulas for making making up your own hydration fluids instead of eating the sports type drinks as well. I can go over those things as well. Like 1 teaspoon of salt to a quart of water, and I think it's 2 tablespoons of sugar to that quart of water. I'll double check that, but I think that that's what it is to make a good rehydration fluid as well. And I think what I'll do, because this video is getting long and I've tried shooting this a couple of times without making blunders, those are things those are the things that I think of right off the bat. Instead of me showing you all of the things, all the food sources, you can see in our previous videos the things that we do like that. There are surveillance and security things that I do as well. I don't think that that's, at least in my area, it isn't as great a concern as being ready for circumstances where there could be an epidemic, or a pandemic. So, trying to limit our exposure to various disease processes as much as possible, maintaining our health is certainly the best thing. Taking the precautions of reducing your chances of contracting an illness as well is very important. So, I think I've covered just about everything I wanted to cover today. If you found this of value, please give us a thumbs up and share it with your friends if you think it would be of value to other people as well. Sorry that I'm not creating one of the videos with all the flying text there as well, but I just wanted to get this one posted today as well. So if you have any comments or questions, please leave them below. That's always really good, or suggestions for the future. And by all means, folks, take care of yourself, stay healthy, think positive. With a good plan and a good amount of work, we can accomplish just about anything. Thanks, folks. Have a great day. Bye-bye now.